So fair warning, this next topic, it is hard to talk about, but it's important that we do. In Utah, 1 in 7 children, 1 in 7, is sexually abused, and that rate is higher than the national average. But my next guest believes having a family safety plan in place can reduce the risk of child sexual abuse, and it empowers both children and adults to recognize and respond to potential dangers. I'm with Bell McCormick, the president of the Policy Project. It's a nonprofit organization that advocates for equitable policies for children, families, and communities. She's also a longtime friend of our show. Good to have you, sister.
Thank you, Rick.
First, I need to say congratulations. You were behind recent legislation that passed providing funds for sexual abuse education in public schools. That was a big exhale for you.
It was a big year. We are so excited because now every K through 6 school in the state of Utah has the opportunity to have this education in the classroom.
Yes.
It's very cool.
Way to go, sister. That's a lot of work. And yet still, it's good to know that kids will be getting this education in schools, and still you believe the best classroom is home.
Yeah, without a question. I mean, I think when you're in a situation where you can teach your kids at home, you know, if you have that kind of a home, it is the best because that's so foundational to who your kids are going to become and can really protect them and empower them and do amazing things for them.
So what is a family safety plan, and why do you think every family needs one?
Yeah, so I think that there is so much fear around the topic of child sexual abuse. I don't like to talk about it. You don't like, none of us like to talk about it. And the reality is there's so much fear that sometimes we don't talk about it, whereas the exact opposite is what we should do, which is creating like 3 or 4 or 5 things in a family safety plan that you just commit as a parent to talking to your kids about, and knowing that if they know those things, they are safe to tell you, and that they are much more likely to be transparent about things, but also to avoid tricky situations.
They have the knowledge to know how to get themselves out.
To navigate it.
Hopefully.
Right.
You say the first step to creating a family safety plan is having that awareness. Yeah. Awareness of what? People, players, situations?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's an incredible nonprofit here called Sapria.org, and they have wonderful resources about creating these family safety plans. The awareness is the first thing, just that this is an issue generally. Kids sometimes don't know, and there's a lot of fear with parents around, well, I don't want to, if my kid doesn't know, I don't want to weird them out. We all feel that way about so many things.
There's a number of topics we could avoid
that we
for
feel
that
a little
reason.
bit uncomfortable about. But the reality is, if we don't talk about it and it happens to them, they often will assume the guilt, like this was because of me or I did something, because they're often being told that. And that's not accurate. So just creating a little bit of awareness, like, hey, this doesn't usually happen, but occasionally this will happen. You know, letting kids understand what the issue is, so that it opens the door to talk.
Well, and I think having an ongoing conversation, we often talk about how it can't be a one and done, and I'll give you credit here, sister, because when your legislation passed, I was reading, I was celebrating with you and for your team, and I found myself thinking, when was the last time I brought this up? My daughter's 5, it's been a couple years. I mean, you do have to, you know, in an age-appropriate way, figure out how often and when to approach this again.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So keeping those like lines of communication open, and also like not shutting down conversations when they start, right? If your child says something that is a little shocking to you, almost making yourself push pause, take a deep breath, and then ask a question. Do not
from
give
a position of neutrality.
Yeah, kind of like, oh, that seems like a really big thing you just told me. Like, okay, tell me more. When did that happen? Or what did Susie say? Or, you know, kind of help them ask a question so that they can elaborate.
The next step on this healthy, you know, this family safety plan is to establish healthy boundaries. What's the best way to teach that, Em?
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting one, because in a dream world, kids should never be responsible for any kind of abuse. But the reality is often our kids are the only ones that know that it's happening, right? Because if we knew, we would step in, right? And so one of those things is just creating just some sentences that might help them understand what a boundary could be. Like, does someone, or like, what is the appropriate thing for someone to do with your body, right? Or for you to do with someone else's body. Just, it is pretty transparent, and being able to say it quite literally is important, but helping them establish like, this is what's appropriate and this is what's not appropriate. but with an open door where they can come and chat with you about it if something like that has happened.
Well, and that openness is key. In fact, it's the next piece of the plan, is to try to create, and I think the previous suggestions will help you create an atmosphere where the dialogue can just flow.
Yeah. And this is an interesting one. You do want to keep that door open. You do not, the biggest thing literally is probably having an open dialogue with your kids and just saying stuff. The tricky part of that is we feel uncomfortable even if we're talking about, intimacy in an appropriate relationship, that's like, oh, none of us want to talk about it, please, no.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is it's even harder when it's in an abusive situation.
Yeah.
But being able to share your words helps your kids mirror that. And so there is a really cool resource called Little Talks on that Cypria.org that shows you, like, here are little tiny ways you can start the conversation. Most of us felt awkward with that and don't want to talk about it. And so helping you, like, slowly introduce, these are like 3 or 4 little things I can say.
Nice.
That just helps open the door.
And finally, promote emotional well-being. How do we do that?
So this one's interesting, and it's one that I think parents get tripped up on a lot. Confident kids are less likely to be abused. And the reason is that they'll typically stand up for themselves. They think they deserve better. There's just like a little bit, that confidence kind of can protect our kids sometimes. So I think, we don't choose what level of confidence we come with, and we are very aware of that. You deal with that topic a lot on the show. And I think also kids, we don't choose our kids' confidence, because we'd all choose 100.
If we could control that, they would be to the moon and back.
It would be amazing. But I think it's just in the verbiage you use around them, like, you're so amazing. You're so valued. Like some of those things that help them understand that at least in the home setting, they are valued and that they're seen. It's incredibly important for them to feel that way.
Well, those small sentences can mean so much. A right turn example, but we just taught Boston how to make popcorn.
Yeah.
And he was, himself, big deal in the microwave.
That's a big step in life.
We were going to bed last night. I was tickling his back, and he said, "Mom, thanks for trusting me." I mean, those words, "I trust you," like you said. You know what I mean? Yes, I trust you. Please take the plastic rock off. But those sentences and those words, they build over time, right?
They do. And I think that as parents, we're often overwhelmed, but this gives us an opportunity, just those small things. Like, you've got Boston, who's now like, I am the bomb at making popcorn. And you're like, yes, you are, Boston. You just nailed that. And so I think you're exactly right. Those build into every situation in a kid's life, and it's important with us too.
You are doing important work. Where can viewers go to learn more about the Policy Project?
So thepolicyproject.org is the best way, and we love to have people participate and help, so anytime.
Say it every time. I won't stop saying it. We are shaking our pom-poms at you. Way to go. Cheering you on.